This episode has been brought to you in part by the Azrieli Music Prizes, celebrating 10 years of promoting excellence in music composition. Come experience the musical imaginations of AMP's 4 extraordinary 2024 laureates. The Orchestre Symphonique de Montréal Chorus and Maestro Andrew McGill give the world premiere of their prize-winning works for the AMP Gala concert on October 28th at Maison Symphonique in Montreal. Learn more at azrielifoundation.org/AMP.
Until we deal with our trauma, if in fact we have trauma, which predominantly we do, we deflect with comedy. So we have a hard time being vulnerable.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ralph Benmergui. Welcome to Not That Kind of Rabbi. Thank you for all of you who listen and occasionally get in touch with me and say, hey, I listened. It's not something anyone should take for granted that people sometimes listen to things that you do. And the connection is always appreciated on my end. If you ever want to get in touch with me, you can do it 2 ways. You can do it at ralphbenmergui.ca. Benmergui is oddly spelled in the English language, but normal in Spanish. Benmergui. So it's Ralph Benmergui, all one word, .ca, or ralphbenmergui@gmail.com, either one. And let me know what you think. And if you have any ideas for what we can do in Not That Kind of Rabbi, I would truly appreciate it. Well, this is an interesting time of year. It is a time of reflection in the Jewish calendar, a time of comeuppance in the Jewish calendar in many ways. It is, there's a great book by Rabbi Alan Liu, who's passed away, but he was a rabbi who was first a Zen monk and then became a rabbi. And the confluence of those two things is fabulous. But the book is called This is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared. And it really is a reflection on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And for those who don't know what Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Rosh is head, Shana is year, so head of the year. It's our New Year's, as it were, which is very interesting because when I was doing a documentary a while back in Israel, we were there over Christmas and New Year's in the Christian calendar. And I have to say, the day that we arrived on Christmas Eve and went to Bethlehem inside the West Bank to see what was going on. The Palestinian Christians were celebrating in Bethlehem, and they were singing jingle bells in Arabic. And it was great. It was just great. And then the next day we were in Lithuania, just north of Tel Aviv, the Silicon Valley of Israel. And I was going to be doing an interview with a guy. And there was a building there that we had to do exterior shots of to establish we're going into that building. And I'm looking around, it's Christmas Day, and I'm thinking, why do I feel funny? What's going on? Why do I feel weird? And then I realized there wasn't one hint that it was Christmas. And for the first time in my life, as someone who grew up in Canada, there was no Christmas. And it was a really interesting experience for me. It was just like, wow, so that's what it's like to be a dominant culture. Because I've lived in somebody else's dominant culture my whole life. There I am. And the same thing on New Year's. The Russian Israelis have something called Sylvester, which is an Eastern European thing. And they have big dinner parties. But out on the street, you could walk around on New Year's Eve, and occasionally there'd be some young people westernizing it up. But almost everybody just was like, anyway, it's just another day. So I love that kind of dissonance that you take for granted certain things and then you find yourself in a different situation. But I digress. So many years ago, I bumped into a woman who was an actor, had a wonderful voice. I remember that. Was an actor, was funny, was very funny. And we became friends through our whole circle of friends. When you're in the acting business, you need as many people around as possible. Otherwise, you'll just perish by yourself alone in a bachelor apartment. This is one of those people. She went off to Los Angeles, Emmy nominee. She's a voice actor. She's a director, a producer, showrunner, for those who know what a showrunner is. She's done it all, and now she's back, and I love when people come back. And she's part of something that we're doing here at the CJN, which is a radio drama for the first time, and I'll get into that in a minute. But right now, I just want to introduce her to you. Her name is Eva Almos. Eva, welcome to Not That Kind of Rabbi.
Thank you so much, Ralph. It's so good to see you.
Yeah. How have you been?
I have been really well, thank you. I've been, happy, moved back to Toronto, although I spend the winter in Los Angeles. But yeah, busy consulting on shows, developing shows, editing novels. Just really focused on the writing for many years now, and just feel very fortunate and have lots of gratitude that I continue to work at 100 years old.
Give or take.
Give or take. Yeah. 1 year. Yeah. So around 1 year, give or take. Yeah.
We're going to talk about this radio play you have a part in.
Yes.
It's called Justice, a Holocaust zombie story.
Yes.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little clip from it, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about your participation and the
impetus of it all.
All right. Yeah. So here we are. Justice, a Holocaust zombie story.
Do you remember the camp in Berlin?
Of course I remember.
When you were there, did you know anyone named Moish?
Who?
Moish, I don't know his last name.
Moish? Sure.
You did?
Of course. There was Moish Slimovich.
Slimovich. S-L-I...
Moish Goldstein.
Goldstein? Not Slimovich?
Moish Tenenbaum. Moish Levy. Moish Mendelbaum.
Got it.
He was a real cutie pie, that Moish Mendelbaum.
What about one who... Was there any Moish who was experimented on?
What's that?
Did the Nazis do any cruel experiments on any of them? Did they take any of them away?
Of course. They took them all away.
I think we're done, guys.
So there you go. There's a clip from Justice, a Holocaust zombie story, written and directed by Michael Fraiman. Full disclosure, he also produces this particular podcast. If you want to listen to it, you can go to the cjn.ca/zombies, and you will be able to listen to episode 3 is just finished airing. So there's more to come. All right. So your part in this, well, you have 3 different characters you play, but one of them is as a booby. So tell me about that character.
So I'll just give you a little bit of backstory here. So I co-wrote and produced and directed a show for a client of mine for the Toronto Fringe Festival recently. And the show was called Rebel Bubby Inc., because she is the most rebellious bubby you ever did meet. And it was a really fun show. So people got wind of it. We got great reviews. It was a lovely experience. And Michael got wind of it as well, your producer. Mm-hmm. And he got in touch with Buria Cooperman, who is Rebel Bubby, and asked her if she could do a Yiddish accent. And she said no, but her director, Eva Almos, could. So he got in touch with me. And then I showed him my bubby voice, and he very much enjoyed it because, Ralph, my mother, both my parents were Holocaust survivors, and my mother was from Lithuania, and I always loved doing her accent. So her accent sounds a little like this. She's very nice. It's so good to see Ralph Benmergui. So good to see you. You look nice. And thank you for doing the podcast with my Eva. So there she is. Yeah. So
yeah, that reminds me of Simon Rakoff had a bit where he said, I don't know why we do this as Jews, but it's like, oh, you look so good.
Yeah.
So good you look.
That's right. Exactly.
Why do we have to say it backwards?
Because we have to reiterate it. You have to reiterate it.
He had a hat.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Exactly. All right. So that's a beautiful voice.
Thank you.
I could feel.
I channel
could
her.
feel your mother in that.
Yeah, absolutely. She's just and it's so. She was the cutest human being on the planet. It's always been the case since I was, I don't know, probably 10 years old. I was able to pick up her accent and do it for her. And she would always say, "That's not the way I talk." And I'd say, "Really? That's not the way you talk? I thought it was the way you talk." And she'd giggle and she'd just love it. So through the years, all my friends know that I can do that voice and very often ask me to do it. And I really feel my mom's essence because she was just the kindest, most lovely woman who was always in a place of gratitude and just enjoyed life so much. And she was a Holocaust survivor, and lost her family. So she's an inspiration. So it's my honor to have done that character.
Yeah. Can you share a bit of her experience with us in terms of the Holocaust and afterwards?
Yes. So she was in Stutthof. She was, I think, 14 when she went. And she had an older sister who's still alive in Israel. Not only did she carry her sister, her much taller, bigger sister, on her back when it was in the winter, and it was just horrifying. She was so strong. She was so small and so sweet, but she was so strong. And if I can share this story with you, when it was over, my mother was by herself. She didn't know where her sister was. And so she was now, I guess, 18 years old. And so people were getting onto trains going somewhere. She didn't know where she was going. She was crying. She watched people get off the train. She didn't know when to get off. And finally, a few stops prior to it ending, she decided to get off. She saw some lady get off and she followed her out. And still crying and walking down the street where she didn't even know where she was. And she heard her sister's voice. And she turned around and there was her sister walking with some woman. And you just the way that life is meant to be in its way and kismet in this particular circumstance. She found her sister. She didn't go off on this stop, that stop, the next stop, another stop, but went on that particular stop, and there was her sister. Mm-hmm. So it's a miraculous story. It's just incredible. Anyway, and then she met my father when she was still in Germany at a dance. He was a Greek Jew, a Sephardic Jew, and he was in Auschwitz.
Wow.
Yeah. And they took many Greeks from Salonika primarily, which is where he grew up. So they met at a dance and, they fell in love. And then my mother's sister said, "Don't be with a Greek man. They don't treat their ladies nice." Right? So my mother broke up with him. Oy face mirror. So they were apart for about 3-4 months. And then she just loved him. He was so handsome and so talented. And he played every instrument. And he sang and he danced. And he was just, anyway.
Greek. He was
Greek, yeah. Yeah, exactly. He was Greek. But an old-fashioned Greek. Old-fashioned, yeah. So, but during that time, he had a little something with a lady. And and we found out 1.5 years ago that we have a half-sister on his side.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
What's that like?
And she lives in L.A.
Oh, my.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy.
More kismet.
She looks like him with a wig, okay?
Wow.
She looks like him with a wig. Wow. So, yeah. Anyway, so then they moved to Israel. My parents, they had my brother there. And then they moved to Toronto. So my mother was so positive as a Holocaust survivor, so positive, so loving, so gracious, so uplifting of others. And my father's experience was not the same, you know. He would never speak of it. You know, he was an old-fashioned kind of male chauvinist Greek guy, and he was a bit of a tough cookie. And so the juxtaposition of how they dealt with their circumstance was fascinating.
You know, I was talking to somebody who has both their parents were Holocaust survivors.
Yeah.
And the triggers for her in the world
Uh-huh.
are so intense
So-
because she said at one point there was a package delivery truck outside of her house. And her mind immediately went to these trucks that the Nazis used to use to kill people with the fumes from the truck. And that's what she thought of right away.
Yeah.
And she said, I don't want to think like this.
Yeah.
But I'm
It's hardwired.
the child of it.
Yeah. It's hardwired. And we're so defensive of our people. And I remember knowing we had a paper boy, and I knew even as a young girl that my parents, I didn't really understand it fully, but I knew it was a terrible thing. And I knew of Hitler. And I remember my male guy called me a dirty Jew.
Wow.
And I didn't know what to do. And I screamed at him. And I was so, just defensive. And yeah, it's something that you carry with your whole life. And there is trauma in it. You know, I know a lot of people who are children of Holocaust survivors. And it's a weight. It's a ghost we carry. It's an awareness that we have that, you know, depending on our parents, it really is dependent on our parents, on how they handled it, you know?
Here's something.
Yeah.
Is part of the situation one where you can't be too happy yourself. You can't be too joyful yourself because you're in the shadow of this horribleness.
Yep.
And who are you to just take for granted that this is an easier life and you're a happier person and sort of hide your light under a bushel a bit? Is that part of it?
Well,
I don't know.
yeah, well, it's an interesting notion. I think that those of us that are children of Holocaust survivors, we ultimately, I think most of us need therapy.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and I sought it out. And my issue was that my dad was a real toughie. And he didn't, you know, also old-fashioned Greek guy, didn't really respect the women folk, you know? He didn't respect me or, you know, somewhat my mom. And so I was always put down by him, and I was always on a pedestal with my mother. Right. So when I first did therapy, I said to the therapist or the psychiatrist, I need you to amalgamate me.
Integrate you. Yeah.
Also, yes. And so I needed to come together because I was this positive, outgoing, somewhat talented, popular person. And I was this fearful, sad, broken little girl. And I had to do inner child work because my father put me down since I was a little kid, you know? And so who you are is present, but there are so many levels in being a child of Holocaust survivors and having a really tough parent that you have to heal. And ultimately, I had to forgive my father because he did the best he could. He did go through the Holocaust. You know, he wasn't educated. He worked in a leather factory, cutting leather for many years. And the last 10 years of his life, he worked at flea markets and he sold stuff. And that was probably the happiest time in his life. And I went and visited him a few times and, you know, and he would pull out, he had a big wad of cash in his pocket and he would roll off $100 and give it to me. And so that was a nice communication with him. And then after he died at 71. In 91, I had just moved to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my brother told me that he would tell people at the flea market how proud he was of me with my successes in Los Angeles. And so that was really nice to hear, but I still needed more therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing that in knowing you when we were younger,
Yeah.
your wit
Yeah.
and your turn towards funny,
Thank you.
which sounds like your mother
Yes.
had that kind of ruach, that spirit.
Yes.
Because I always saw you as someone like me, who the filter that we went through with the experiences we had was to find out how it was funny.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting, because I've talked to many children of Holocaust survivors. We can have an organic sense of humor. Fine, I had that. But what we do until we deal with our trauma, if in fact we have trauma, which predominantly we do, we deflect with comedy. So we have a hard time being vulnerable. You know, we wear armor so we don't get hurt again.
Right.
And so I thought vulnerability was weakness growing up. I used to see my mom beg my father for a hug, for some love, and he would, not physically, but he would send her away. And
Right.
so in my eyes, that was weak, because she kept trying and trying to, you know what I mean? And I felt bad for her. So, you know, you really, but I still had the comedy in me, but I had to deal with the trauma. So I did years ago. Yeah. So it's good. I'm all together now.
Oh, you're the one. I knew there was somebody. I didn't know it was you.
Well, not all.
I sensed it was you, but I didn't know it was you.
Yeah. We're all still a bit messed up. Everybody.
No, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. Really, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Why are you asking?
What
have you heard?
Why are your eyes spinning? Why are your eyes spinning?
That's right. What have you heard? What have you heard?
Right, exactly. You don't like
Just tell me already.
You don't like me? Why don't you like me? Yeah.
You know, I used to talk to, I do workshops occasionally with professional broadcasters, and a friend of mine did them, and he would have me come in for an afternoon, and I'd say to the broadcasters, I'd say, all right, here's the bad news. You are asking people you've never met to love you.
Right.
And
yeah.
doesn't usually come from a place of health.
No, it does
Right.
not. It's like,
and I said,
yeah, it's like,
and here's the good news. The good news is you actually have the tools to make you love me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Now here's the question. Now that I have your attention, what am I going to do with it?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right? Because that's what's left when you as a performer, a writer, producer,
Yeah.
it's like, why am I telling a story? What's the point? Besides, do you really think I'm good at this?
Yeah.
Because we did that. We did that when we were younger.
Yeah.
This is a different part of life.
It is a different part of life. And it's also sharing. And, one of my favorite things to do, which I get a chance to do with some clients, is to uplift them, to find where I'm fascinated by psychology, and I've done a lot of work on it. And I just love to help others and uplift them and help them with their, trauma, their issues, because I've done so much work on it myself. So,
well, you like our house because my wife's a psychotherapist.
Is she? Yeah.
And I'm a spiritual counselor.
Right.
So between the two of us, it's going on.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Well, it is, because it's all still storytelling.
Yeah.
People tell you the story of their life.
Yeah.
And, you're there to support them in that story.
You bet.
It's a beautiful thing.
You bet.
This is an audition to be a cantor.
But I don't want to be a cantor.
I wasn't raised with any
The heartbeat of community.
I welcome Sam into my community by first taking his foreskin and next showing him the beautiful Twister bagel.
Culturally Jewish is the only podcast covering the weird, wide world of independent Canadian Jewish art.
Listen to Culturally Jewish at the cjn.ca/culture or wherever you get your podcasts.
We have lived a good part of life.
Yeah.
Where do you see your life going now?
Well, it's a good question. I think that, I'm in such gratitude of my life and the fact that, I was brought to Los Angeles when I was doing voiceover, and I don't know, they say I was in the top 10 women in Canada. I have no idea. But they brought me there, a big agency there, and I was able to work and get into the Warner Brothers Writers Workshop. And my teacher at UCLA became my writing partner. We were nominated for an Emmy and all these lovely things. And then I came back to Toronto, and, it's like I'm more in my skin than I've ever been. I've always been generally a happy person that needed therapy. But we've done that, and that's good. So you know what, Ralph? I think that, we need to help others. We need to give back. I just want to be happy and calm and not live in a place of stress, and stay positive and be thankful of the little things. And that's really how I live. It's really how I live. I have amazing people in my life, and a beautiful brother and a half sister that looks like my father with a wig, and who I love, Mira, and my brother David. And so, I just see we're just moving forward. We're lucky to be here. We're lucky to have opportunities like this. We're lucky to see old friends. We're lucky to make an effort to be the best us we can be every day. Every morning I wake up, I choose happiness and I choose gratitude consciously. I choose it because you got to choose it,
Yeah.
And
it's not just a condition.
No.
Oh, I'm just happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to have an intention, a kavanah.
Yeah.
So when we wake up in the morning, the morning prayers are of gratitude that you're here, that you're alive, that things work.
Yeah.
Right. And that you have to take that gratitude and use it to energize your ability to do like what you're doing. You're doing a lot of mentorship. You have clients. You help them to get better at what they do.
Yeah. Love it.
It's beautiful. Well, listen, it's lovely to see you again.
Thank you. You too, Ralph. Really nice to see you.
And when I come into Toronto, we got to go and have lunch and just
love that.
Yeah.
I would love
right.
that. Okay.
Eva Almos has been my guest. She is in Justice, a Holocaust Zombie Story. You can get that at the cjn.ca/zombies. And that's that.
That's that. That's the whole thing.
That's the whole schmear.
That's the whole schmear. All right.
Said the Sephardic guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Take care of yourself.
All right, you too, honey.